The cattle had drifted toward the creek at dawn, and by noon the sun hammered the valley flat as a nail-head. Elias Boone rode fence lines slow, measuring the way heat bent the air. Grass crackled under his bay mare. Cicadas drilled the silence. When he turned into the alley behind his weathered shed, the mare stopped of her own mind and blew a nervous breath. Something small was pressed to the north wall, where the boards kept the only strip of shade this time of day. At first he thought it a bundled tarp, wind-pushed. Then it lifted a face. A girl. Bare feet tucked under bones too sharp for her skin, knees against her chest, arms around them like she could make herself smaller by force. No hair, scalp the pale shine of a river stone, eyes too big for the narrow face, bottomless and guarded. The dress hanging on her was more suggestion than cloth, color of old dishwater, threadbare at the seams. Dust ringed her ankles like manacles. Elias slid from the saddle without sound. His boots sank in powder. He kept his hands away from the rifle and away from her, open at his sides. The mare chewed the bit and flicked an ear. He patted her neck once, and she settled. "Water," he said, because even a frightened animal understands one clear word. He didn't step closer, just moved to the porch, slow, like approaching a skittish colt. The pump handle groaned. He filled the dented tin cup until it spilled over, set it halfway between them on the hard-packed earth, then backed off 3 paces and waited. The girl did not look at the cup. She watched him the way wild things do, measuring angles, doors, weapons, the shape of escape. A fly worried the edge of her dress. She didn't flinch. Only her throat worked, a small swallow that sounded too loud in the heat. Elias crouched, forearms on his knees. The ground burned through the denim. He let the minutes lengthen and do some of the talking. When the wind shifted, he caught the smell of sun-cooked wood and creek mud, and something faintly sour, as if the road had tried to keep her and failed. A cloud crossed. The shadow took the bite out of the light, and the girl's gaze flicked, just once, to the water. That was enough. She inched forward on hips and heels, still watching him. The cup scraped. She lifted it in both hands, like a found treasure, and drank too fast. Half ran down her chin. She coughed once, a dry bark, then held the cup out toward him with both hands, not to return it, but as if asking whether this simple mercy carried a price. He shook his head. "Keep it." She drew it back and folded her body around it, the metal bright in her lap, fingers white to the knuckles. A long time passed. The sun edged forward. Elias rose, went to the porch again, and cut a heel of yesterday's bread. He added a smear of lard, a spoon of wild plum jam, set the plate near where the cup had been, and backed away. This time she looked at the bread longer than she had looked at him. Hunger is a language older than fear. She tore pieces small, chewed slow, as if she had learned long ago that sudden fullness could punish. When the last crumb was gone, she licked the smear from the plate, a child's gesture carried out with a woman's caution. "Got a name?" he asked. Her mouth shaped nothing. The eyes dipped to the dust, then returned. "No." "Anyone with you?" The silence had weight. She held it like she held herself, tight, controlled. Her gaze slid toward the road, the heat-gauzed line where the stage sometimes came and sometimes didn't. Whatever answer lived there, she kept. Elias didn't press. Questions were stones. Too many at once and a person sank. He took his hat off and held it by the brim, letting sweat run from his hairline unchallenged. "Fine," he said, mostly to the air. "We'll use girl for now." A hawk called high, and the sound folded into the afternoon. Elias stood and moved to the shed door. He pulled it open, set his shoulders against the hinge that always stuck. Inside, the air was cooler by degrees. He brought out a quilt, Mira's work, pieced from old shirts and feed sacks, stitched in small, firm lines. Even after 2 winters alone, he had not packed it away. He shook dust from it and laid it where the shade was thickest. The girl watched the quilt like a trick. He nudged it with the toe of his boot, then sat on the threshold of the shed and busied his hands with a harness buckle that didn't need fixing. After a time, she slid onto the quilt and curled on her side, knees to chest, the tin cup still locked in one hand. The relief in her face was so raw it embarrassed him. She kept one eye open until it didn't matter, and sleep took her. Elias stayed where he was and listened to the wind high in the cottonwoods. He counted breaths without meaning to. He marked each tiny flinch in her sleep, the way her fingers twitched when a door banged at the barn, the way she made herself smaller at each sound, small enough to disappear. He told himself he was watching for trouble. Truth was, he was remembering the last time he had listened so hard for another person's breathing. Mira's, fever slow, 3 winters gone. Grief, like heat, thins a man out until there's not much left but bone and habit. When she woke, the sun had slipped down the sky and took the edge of the heat with it. Her eyes found him first, then the mare, then the fence line, reading the world again from the outside in. She sat up, stiff, and he saw then the raw skin where her ankles had rubbed, the fine scabs along her shins, the places where a razor or a fire or a hand had stripped her hair too close. He looked away, not from the marks, but from the shame of seeing them. "Bathhouse is small," he said, voice quiet. "Creek's bigger?" He hesitated. "I'll take the far pasture. You can have the water and the time. There are towels on the line, soap in a tin by the barrel." No answer. But when he looped the mare's reins over a porch post and walked down toward the lower field with his hat low and his back turned, he heard the faintest sound behind him, the soft clink of the tin cup set carefully on the plate, then the whisper of bare feet through dust. At the creek, he gave the fence a lazy eye and fixed nothing, just let his hands move because hands should, when a man's mind is already full. The cottonwood leaves flashed green and silver. A dragonfly wrote its name on the surface of the slow water and erased it. Farther up, where the bank curled and made a pocket from the wind, he heard water lift and fall, someone washing the road from their skin. He stayed until the light turned honey and the first mosquitoes argued with swallows. When he came back, the girl sat on the porch step wrapped in one of his old shirts, the tails almost to her ankles. The shirt had belonged to him before grief and work thinned him. Now it fit her like something meant. Her scalp shone clean and smooth. The lines around her mouth had loosened. She had hung the rag dress on the fence, and the wind worried it like a flag no one claimed. He set a plate of stew on the top step, a spoon across it, a jar of well water beside. She ate slow again, deliberate, and he let the quiet do what it was good at. When the jar was empty, she set it down and looked at him full. The look had more steadiness in it than the first had. Not trust, not yet, but a notch toward it, like a fence post sunk a little deeper. He tapped his chest. "Elias." She watched his hand, not his mouth. He tapped again. "Elias." Then pointed gently at her. The smallest frown touched her brow. She touched her own chest, tentative, then dropped her hand into her lap. No sound came. He nodded anyway, as if she had spoken. "All right," he said. "No hurry." Twilight softened the hard edges of the yard. Crickets tuned their instruments. Elias rose and lit the porch lamp, trimming the wick until the flame steadied. He carried a pallet and another quilt to the shed and spread them beside the first. A neat, small camp, the way you'd arrange a place for a passing traveler who might decide to stay. He brought out an old pair of wool socks and set them folded on the end of the quilt. The girl's eyes followed the movement, then returned to him. "There's wolves sometimes," he said. "Coyotes more often. I'll take the chair by the door. You sleep." She looked at the socks, like a strange gift, then at him, then slid her feet into them with careful hands, as if she had been given something valuable and breakable. She lay back and faced the door. He settled in the chair, hat tipped, rifle near but not leaning on it. The lamp hummed. Night gathered itself and came down. When sleep took her the second time, it took her clean. Elias listened a long while, counting the even measure of her breaths until they folded into the steady sounds of his own place. The wind, the creak, the slow creak of the porch as it cooled. He thought about the morning and the day after, about the store in town and how words traveled faster than horses, about how a man explains a person who has no name, and yet is his particular responsibility now, for reasons that do not fit easily in any mouth. He closed his eyes against all that talk, and let the night do the rest. Tomorrow could take its chances. Tonight there was a girl asleep on Mira's quilt, and the soft sound of her breathing to stitch this quiet farmhouse back together, one small thread at a time. By sunrise, Elias had decided he couldn't hide her. Not from the neighbors, not from himself. The girl, still barefoot but now wrapped in his old shirt and socks, sat on the porch step, eating an apple slice by slice. She watched every move he made with the wary patience of someone who knew how quickly safety could change. "I need supplies," he said, though he wasn't sure she understood. He pointed to the mare, then to town, then back at her. "Stay, here." He made a shape of a roof with his hands. "Safe." She tilted her head, mouth tight, but gave no sign she'd run. He left her bread, water, and the quilt folded neatly. The last thing he saw, riding out, was her small figure curled into the porch corner like a shadow that didn't belong to the house. In town, he tied the mare at Henderson's store. Heat already shimmered across the street. A few men leaned near the post office, chewing on gossip like cud. Elias felt their eyes when he went in. Henderson raised his brows at the list. Soap, cloth, women's shoes, small, a comb, needles and thread. "Expecting company?" Henderson asked, voice light but sharp underneath. Elias only said, "Someone needed them." When Henderson brought the goods, his wife slipped out from behind the counter. "You heard about the child?" she asked. "Near the ridge? Folks said some wagon got hit by raiders a week past. Couple bodies found. Maybe she crawled off." Elias kept his face plain. "Didn't hear." He paid in coin and left before more words could stick. Back home, he found her right where he'd left her. The apple core gone. The quilt folded. The tin cup rinsed and set upside down on the step as if she wanted him to see she'd done it right. He laid the shoes down carefully, not too close. Soft leather, small size. She glanced at them, then at him, eyes narrowing like she was deciding whether shoes could be a trap. Later, when he mended fence, he saw her by the shed. She'd laced the shoes on, clumsy but determined, and walked slow circles in the dust, testing the weight. Each step looked like both a memory and a new thing. That night, Elias sat in his chair while she lay on the pallet. The socks poked from under the quilt, shoes set neatly beside. Her breathing was steadier than before, less like a hunted thing. But in the dark, when a coyote yipped far off, he heard her whisper something, a sound so faint it might have been breath alone. A name, maybe, or a prayer. He couldn't catch it. And he knew then, whoever she was, wherever she'd come from, she wasn't just lost. She'd been taken, broken down, then left to survive. He leaned back, rifle resting across his knees, and told himself he'd ask more tomorrow. But not tonight. Tonight, letting her sleep without fear was all the answer he needed. 3 days passed. She stayed close to the porch, to the well, to the quilt folded on its corner. Never past the gate. Elias worked slow and steady in the fields, but his eyes always drifted back to the house. Each time, she was there, watching. On the 4th morning, he found the shoes lined up neat against the wall, dust brushed off with care. Beside them, a small stack of wood chips, sorted by size. She had taken his axe scraps and built a little pile, as though order itself was a way to repay him. "You don't owe me," Elias said, though he knew she couldn't catch the words. He left bread by the chips, and her eyes softened. Just a fraction. That afternoon, he set a tin cup on the table, filled it with water, and tapped the rim. Water. He drank, then repeated. Water. She stared. Lips pressed tight. He slid the cup toward her. She took it, careful, and drank. Then, almost too quiet to hear, she repeated it. Wa-ter. The sound cracked something in his chest. The first word. He nodded once, no smile, but his throat burned. News traveled fast in the territory. By the week's end, Sheriff Moore rode up, dust clinging to his boots. "Morning, Elias," he said. His eyes flicked to the porch where the girl sat still as a post. "Heard tell you found yourself a stray." "She ain't a stray," Elias answered, voice even. Moore tilted his hat back. "Don't matter what you call her. Folks are asking. Some say she's from that wagon raid. Some say Apache. Others whisper worse." His gaze sharpened. "You planning to keep her?" Elias felt the girl's stare on his back. He squared his shoulders. "I'm planning to keep her safe." The sheriff studied him, chewed on the thought, then spat dust. "Safe's a heavy word out here." He mounted again. "Make sure you can carry it." When Moore rode off, Elias turned to find her standing. Her hands were fists at her sides, but her eyes, dark, steady, met his without flinching. For the first time, it wasn't fear he saw there. That night, she whispered again in her sleep. This time, Elias caught it clear. Anya. A name. The next morning, Elias said it aloud. Anya. She froze. Her bare feet halted in the dust by the porch steps. For a heartbeat, she didn't breathe. Then, slow, she nodded once, almost like a bow. It was the first time her shoulders loosened in his presence. Elias started using the name when he spoke to her. Anya, supper? Anya, careful with the stove. Each time she glanced toward him, the name planting roots inside her. She was learning quicker than he expected. Words like bread, water, sun came haltingly, but they came. Still, she never said where she came from. Never spoke of family, of tribes, of raids whispered through town. Just her name. By the week's end, others came sniffing around. A pair of ranch hands from 2 valleys over rode up. They leaned on their saddles, eyes fixed too long on the girl stacking kindling by the barn. "She yours, Whitaker?" one asked with a crooked grin. "She's not property," Elias said flat, resting a hand on his shovel. The men laughed, but their eyes were mean. "Don't matter what you call her. A girl like that's bound to fetch a price somewhere." Elias stepped closer, jaw tight. "She stays here." Something in his tone made them shift in the saddle. With a spit and a curse, they rode off. When Elias turned, Anya was gone. He found her crouched inside the barn, fists pressed to her head like she could block out voices. "It's all right," he said low, crouching beside her. He didn't touch her, just stayed until her breathing slowed. That night, she woke screaming. Elias rushed in with the lantern and found her thrashing in the quilt, eyes wide with terror. He caught her wrists gently. "Anya, it's me, Elias!" Her chest heaved, but her eyes found his, and in a cracked whisper she said more than she had in days. "Fire. Horses. Men with red scarves." Her voice broke. Elias froze. Red scarves. He knew the name that followed. Clayton's gang. Raiders, killers, the kind who left no one alive. But somehow this girl had lived. And now, she was under his roof. 2 nights later, Elias woke to the sound of horses. Not the slow clop of travelers, but the hard rhythm of men who rode with intent. He slipped on his boots, took his rifle from the wall, and stepped out into the yard. Moonlight painted the land silver. 5 riders approached, scarves tied at their necks, red catching the glow. Clayton's men. One called out, "Evenin', Whitaker. Heard you're hiding something don't belong to you." His voice was slick with confidence. Elias stood tall, rifle resting but ready. "Ain't hiding anything. She's under my roof now. That makes her mine to protect." Laughter broke across the riders. "Protect?" the leader spat. "She's ours. We left her breathing so she could tell others who did it." From the porch came a sound. A door creak. Anya stood there, face pale in the lantern glow. Her hands trembled, but her chin lifted. "No," she said. The word cut the night like a knife. The riders stilled. Shock flickered across their faces at hearing her voice. The leader dismounted, boots heavy on the dirt. "Girl, you know what we can do. Don't matter if this rancher stands in the way." He turned his sneer toward Elias. "1 bullet, and she's ours again." Elias raised the rifle, steady as stone. "Then you'll have to try." For a long beat, no one moved. Dust swirled around hooves, the air thick with gunpowder waiting to spark. And then something shifted. Anya stepped down from the porch, barefoot in the cold earth. She moved to Elias's side, not behind him, but beside him. Her hand touched his sleeve. "Together," she whispered. The gang cursed, muttered, shifted uneasily. The woman they thought broken stood defiant, and the man they thought timid didn't flinch. In that moment, the balance tipped. The leader spat in the dirt, snarled, and swung back into the saddle. "Ain't worth it," he muttered. "Let's ride." The 5 turned their horses and vanished into the night, leaving only dust and the echo of hooves. Elias lowered the rifle. His hands shook only after it was over. Anya still stood beside him, her breath quick but steady. She looked up at him with dark eyes that had carried too much loss, and for the first time he saw something new in them. Trust. He nodded once. "You're safe here." And though words still came hard, she answered softly, firmly, "I know."